Okay, good afternoon, Coach Hall. Before we get to the game, we don't oftentimes have a chance to talk about recruiting here, but understand we got a verbal commitment from a young man who's about 4 hours old. Why don't you talk about how he's doing and the mother?
Yes, my wife and I, we gave birth this morning at 8:05 a.m. to Isaiah.
Who did the work?
I'm sleepy, okay? She's sleeping right now. To Isaiah Bernard, and he was 8 pounds, 4 ounces, and 22 inches long. So happy about that. That's the smallest yet, though. I was shocked. My daughter was 10 pounds, and I believe she was 23 inches when she was born. So she was 10 and a half, I'm sorry. So, yes, he's got some growing to do. I thought I was calling him Megatron, and it was more like Bumblebee. No, so we're excited about that. So she's doing well, he's doing well, and they're there in recovery, hanging out with the family right now. So that was a blessing.
Well, it's been an eventful year for you.
Say, Cory, how has this affected your prior weeks, over the past few weeks, and how will it affect you this week?
It was funny. When we were there, I was in the waiting room watching film, and then I was late home last night, watching film. So it hasn't. Only thing that I did miss, I was not at the team meeting, which I am usually a part of on Mondays. So that pulled me away from that. But outside of that, the first opportunity I got back here. So it won't. Actually, it'll probably have me put in even more. It doesn't seem like or appear that I will be getting any sleep. So I might as well put that energy into good use. So it won't affect anything because, what is this for me, 8? So, I'm used to it. This is calisthenic.
Cory, I know you're a defensive guy, but I'm curious, in the spring and summer when there was talk about Tyner coming to Oregon State, what did you know about him and his background? And then I wondered if, since you took over as head coach, you've talked to him at all about his journey and just, I think it's pretty cool that he's persevered and found love for the game again and come back.
Yeah, obviously I knew that he was Oregon's best athlete, right? He was 10.3 100-meter sprinter. I've seen pictures from his youth. He was a lot trimmer, a lot slimmer then. But when he came here and seeing that he retired from football? I believe he was, right, from Oregon, and to be able to acquire him off of waivers, was huge. And then watching him there in fall camp, watching him get in the fold, you saw glimpses of why he was one of the best athletes, if not the best athlete in Oregon, at a period point in time. And, looking at his journey and then, getting him in the mix now and having him carry the ball, you see that he is a next level back, and, you start thinking, I know there were some injuries, but you start to wonder, had he kept going, injury-free, stay consistent with it, what his future would look like. Because even now he still has a bright future, and he's kind of he's had a long layoff, and now he seems to be getting back to full strength. So his story is remarkable, and depending on what he decides to do, I think the sky is the ceiling for Thomas Tyner, just depending on what he wants to do. No, I've heard, rumblings about what he may do, and I try not to, apply pressure because I need to sit down with him when it's all said and done, just like I knew everyone on a personal level, and kind of see where their hearts are and see where his head is at, and give him the pros and cons as best I see fit for him, and hopefully I can guide him into making a well-informed and educated decision about what his future holds in football.
Looking forward to the Civil War, now that Herbert's back for Oregon, how does your game plan change?
I mean, I watched games without Herbert and with Herbert, and it actually is the same game plan. Right? I mean, it's just he's a lot more comfortable in that offensive system, and you can tell that his team, they feel like they've got their head back. So the energy that they have behind him is what has allowed them, or what allowed them to be successful against Arizona. So as far as the game plan, I mean, it doesn't change. You still got to stop Royce Freeman. Okay, and then he has the other element. He's able to drive back, make some plays with his arms, and he's able to keep plays alive with his feet. I mean, you saw, I think it was a 40-yard, 50-yard scamper that he ran against Arizona for a touchdown. So obviously he's a tremendous athlete. But as far as game plan, we just have to execute. Still going to have to contain him and. Muddy up some looks on defense. And then, again, most importantly, we got to stop Royce. I mean, he's hit a remarkable milestone, already in this point in his career. So that's what the game plan will be. And I'll go up there as soon as I leave this presser and start to look at it and see what our plan of attack will be.
Cory, obviously the Oregon defense was able to do something nobody really else has done and contain Khalil Tate. What did you see from that defense last week, and what's the biggest challenge for you guys?
Well, the biggest challenge is going to be to start fast. Right. We've had two halves, right? 2 second halves where we've come out and we've moved the ball, and it's been pretty hard to stop us. And so, looking at that defense, again, we're just going to have to make our plays. We're going to have to be consistent and confident. I think in the second half, I don't know what that is, playing from behind. You see an offense that exudes a great deal of confidence. So we have to execute, and we have to hit the ground running. I mean, fast, and not wait to fill things out. The Oregon defense, they are who they are. They have their holes just like any other defense has their holes. So we just have to put together a plan that will take advantage of the things that they're allowing us to take advantage of in that defense. As far as obviously they have a talented front seven. They have some guys that that can rush the passer and can be disruptive in the run game. So we have to take what they give us. And I'm pretty sure the offensive staff will do exactly just that, because, we got a lot of film on them. And, those things are there. We just have to expose them.
Okay, so Cory, when you were at Fresno State, who was your guys' biggest rival?
Someone else asked me this question. I was like, well, it really wasn't a rival, but it was San Jose State.
Okay, so what I wondered was Ryan Nall has played really well against the Ducks historically. Mm-hmm. And I wondered, what was your playing career like when you played against a rival? And can you ever account for just that game does mean more?
Absolutely. No, that even though we dominated that series, you guys got to do some fact checking. But I can never recall losing to San Jose State. But we were always up for that game, just because for some reason, no matter how how dominant we were in those series of games, they always felt they had a chance. Now, that was obviously false, but no pun intended. I think Coach Baldwin might have been the head coach of one of those teams or something, so I don't want him to think that I'm taking a shot at him. But, we were always up for that game, and we always set goals for that game. So when you look at it, and because you look at Ryan Nall, he's from the state of Oregon, and then you have Oregon Ducks. So that game's going to hold a lot of weight for guys like Ryan Nall, Trevon Bradford, the guys from Oregon. So they're going to be revved, the engines revved high. And then, you have the performance that we had last season. Don't think for 1 minute that Oregon has forgot about that. So, you're dealing with that element. But at the end of the day, those are all football. Things that are involved and surrounded by football. Now, it is rivalry week, and did I say that right? I know that commercial, so you say it fast, rivalry week. When you look at that, I mean, it is just that. And obviously, both teams are going to come with a lot more juice. And it is my opinion that it shouldn't matter whether it's a rival or not. You should always come out and go 150% anyway. But for some reason, because it's the state of Oregon, the Ducks versus the Beavers, it's going to be charged. No different than UCLA, USC, no different than any other game, right, across the country. When you look at Arizona and Arizona State, Arizona fell to the Ducks, but I guarantee, and Khalil Tate only had, 14 yards rushing? I guarantee when they play Arizona State, I guarantee that's going to be a different, the atmosphere will be a lot different. No more than how the atmosphere will be when we go down.
To piggyback off that, this has been a really frustrating season for, I think, everyone involved with Oregon State. Would beating the Ducks wipe all that away?
You know what? I always say this because we have 1 week and one game, right? So 1 week, one game, and that game is all that matters. So what a signature win means is, where the team is headed. And again, how they finish and how they compete really kind of speaks to the depth, and it speaks to what to look forward to. Because it's the only game of the week and the only game that we have to look forward to, ending on a high note really kind of sends a message to not just the fans, but it sends a message to the freshmen, the players that redshirt. Now, they're able to go into the 2018 season with confidence, right? At least confidence knowing that we can beat the Ducks and we can be competitive, against Oregon year in and year out. So does it wipe away what happened, this season? That would be a bright spot, right? I mean, what has happened this season? Again, what I said, it happens every year, right? UCLA just lost Jim Moore. I have a few players on that team that I coached in high school that are down about that right now. So when you look at things and the events over the course of a season, yes, you can end on a high note, but you're always going to reflect and look back on the events that happened throughout the season. But a win would be huge. A win would be huge for everyone involved, but a win would have been huge versus Stanford. A win would have been huge versus Colorado. A win would have been huge versus Arizona. A win would have been huge, this past Saturday. So it's a game, and it's the only game, right? The biggest game, one of the biggest games of the year, just because of the rivalry that's there. And so I do believe that although a win would mean so much to so many, for me, it's no different than any other week. But it's important because it's your last shot. This is it. 2017. So, again, I always say you're only as good as your last game. There's no other game to look forward to after this one.
With the healthier team, but also the intensity of this game, do you have to approach it any differently?
You know what? I think if we do that, then again, we're kind of playing timid, and that's not my personality. You still have to move on and move forward as though you are full strength. Now you have to understand your limitations, and you have to do everything in our power. We have to do everything in our power to protect the interest of those, the things that we're limited in as far as, the health, the injuries that we have. But I don't think that's going to affect the emotion. I don't think that's going to affect the game plan because, we also get some guys back. That's kind of been, the theme of the year, right? You lose one, gain one, lose one, gain one. And so we've gained some back that we needed last week, or that we would have needed versus Arizona. And but now we got them for this game, but then you lose some that you need for an Oregon game, But it doesn't affect how we strategically align ourselves to put our players in positions to be successful. I don't think you do that at all. You got to look at practice this week because of that factor, and that's where the poise and the experience of the coaching comes in, right? Just because we got to do everything that will help this team lead up, throughout the week into an explosive Saturday. And so, same thing, because it is the last game. It's not like the last game in Reeser. This is the last game, for seniors, period. And so the emotions have to be held in check. And I think you just let them go, on Saturday. And you go ahead and touch on things and point out certain realizations. And, again, keep it fun for them, keep it exciting, because this is an exciting week. And that really needs to be hammered home. And that needs to be the main focus, not the deficiency, but the opportunity.
So if geographically San Jose State would have been the rival and you had to think about that, was there any team that you and your teammates collectively did not like?
Absolutely. So that team, just because they would always, for some reason, we had a issue with San Diego State. That was always a physical battle. It was San Diego State right there, bowl eligibility, and in comes San Diego State, or we'll go and play San Diego State, and it'll be a close game. Either it was a close game or they would just wear us out. So that was the game that you always looked forward to, because you knew that was going to define whether you were going to get into a bowl game or not. And we always came up short versus San Diego State. Can't stand them.
What makes Royce Freeman so dangerous?
Because he's powerful. He's a powerful back. He's fast, and he can go 0 to 60. He can get there pretty doggone quickly. And plus, you know what? I mean, how long has Royce been there? What is this, his 10th season? But he's a seasoned back, and he's very talented. I mean, he's a Sunday NFL running back. I mean, obviously, his post-college playing career looks bright. And I'm pretty sure there'll be a number of teams acquiring his services next season. So he runs hard. And I think right now, I haven't checked any of the injury reports, but I think he's fully healthy, which has been different in the past. And, he made a commitment to come back and contribute to this season for the Ducks. And he's done a good job. And so but again, you can look at the backs in the Pac-12. There are a lot of good backs in it. And he's no different. I mean, he's powerful, but I mean, we faced that before. We at the end of the day, we have to execute and we have to complete our assignments, and we'll be fine.
Cory, first of all, it looks like you were correct. You never lost to San Jose State.
See, I told you. I mean, that's almost laughable. A Spartan?
Have you talked to Coach Baldwin about that?
No, never. I still wouldn't. So when I saw, what was that, last season Fresno State lost to San Jose State, or 2 seasons ago, I was like, that's got to be some kind of record. Because, that was just never – that was always kind of a – I don't know. It just was a game. I mean, there were never a team that we overlooked, but it was just a fact. It was almost laughable because it's like, this is the rivalry? Okay, well, we're going to be charged and we're going to go out there and be Bulldogs. And then there were actually, I believe, 98. What was the score in 98? That probably was a lot closer, right? Or 90. You see what I mean? Yes. So I do remember, and that was at San Jose State, right? Correct? Yes. So I do remember that. And I remember they had that offensive system was pretty potent at that time. So I believe I do remember that being a season like, oh, hey, man, we really got to kind of nut up versus San Jose State this year. They're scoring some points. So I do remember that season kind of being like, okay, hey, we can't be the team. You never just, I'm sure Wisconsin feels the same way about Minnesota. It's like, we can't be the team that loses to San Jose State. I mean, we haven't lost to San Jose State. I mean, how long? I mean, it's like a long time record. So, I've never, as a player, And as a coach, I've never overlooked any opponent because, I mean, any opponent can be very, very dangerous at any given time. I mean, we go to Hawaii, and Hawaii on the Rockets, for some reason, maybe it was the scooters and, the ocean and doing all the other things that we were doing in Hawaii, but we couldn't win on the Rock. But Hawaii would come to Fresno State, and we beat them like 80-3. You know what I mean? So, there are some teams, and like I said, you can never overlook an opponent because at any given time, an opponent can become deadly.
Well, last year was your first Civil War experience. Obviously, there was a long losing streak that you guys broke. In your room, Treston Decoud was upset that he was not offered by Oregon. Just what were some of your memories last year going into that game and the impact you felt it had?
Going into that game, so last year for me was a lot about proving myself, and you're doing it through those corners, those guys on the edges, and Dwayne Williams. And so I remember the confidence that Xavier Crawford, Dwayne Williams, because that game we had got him back. I think we had just got him back for the Arizona game, so it was Arizona then Oregon, and so they were really clicking on all cylinders. And so that week I remember thinking, like, we're going to beat Oregon because we match up. We match up well outside, and then now we have Dwayne Williams back. They're a 12 personnel team, so, they're probably thinking they're going to get the mismatch with a smaller nickel, but he's a lot faster. And then, out there on the edges, we'll be able to hold our own. All we have to do is shut down the running game. And then I remember the quarterback was young. I know they had a young quarterback. Well, he's not young anymore. But I remember they had a young quarterback, but then you still go in there because you understand the magnitude of that game. So I had knots in my stomach. I wasn't on the field. I was in the booth. And just watching that game, I mean, they got up on us pretty quickly there. Two scores? And was it 2 scores or 10 points? And I remember it started to rain. And once it started to rain, I was always big at looking down at the opponent's sideline and kind of seeing their energy because I'm a real big believer in energy. And I remember seeing that our sideline was jumping around and we didn't have raincoats on. And then I saw the fancy, Nike Duck raincoats go on. And I was like, I remember thinking this, we're going to beat them, because they're not prepared for these elements there. And then I remember Ryan Nall was running tough. That offense was pushing people around. And I was, excited for Corvallis and Beaver Nation, but I was excited for Coach Anderson, for what he had accomplished. And I was excited for our players because, just like now, that means a lot. That rivalry is real. And so I remember once it happened, I mean, it took everything. I think I almost jumped through the window. I've done that like a couple of times where I hit my head on the glass up there because I thought it was open, and sometimes CTE, I don't know. But I remember jumping out of my seat, and I remember that whole experience with everyone pouring out onto the field. And obviously I had to wait for the elevator to get down. And by the time I got down there, celebration kind of was dispersing. Players were going in the locker room. And I remember how excited everybody was to have accomplished that feat. I don't remember when the last time, I believe it was like, 10 years? Was it 10 years? 9? Not so 7. I just remember that it had been a long time coming, and it always feels good to beat the Ducks. I went to Fresno State, but if you guys go and you pull that up, every time I played the Ducks, it was the same thing. It was overtime loss. It was an overtime loss when we went to Austin. It was an overtime loss when they came to Fresno State. So every time I played them, when they had Pat Johnson, when they had what was the running back? Saladin McCullough, when they had Akili Smith, it was always a big game just because, it was a lot of hype surrounding the Ducks. So, as a player, as a coach, and as a Beaver, it all still feels the same.
And there was a lot of kind of put maybe from the media perspective on the momentum that win would have kind of going into the next season. Is that overstated what that can do for the offseason and the build-up, and why do you think, if not that didn't quite translate in the same way?
Well, because that's what I always say, and I remember when someone made the comment, they've likened Khalil Tate to Michael Vick. And so I'm like, okay, well, hold on. Now we're talking about someone who's done it in the NFL and in college for a long time, and a lot of times we like to kind of feed the beast is what I call it, and sometimes that gets into the heads of players, the heads and minds of players, because now they think, because socially people believe that we're as good as we appear to be, that must mean that we are, and then you forget that you actually have to put in the work, right? Sweat equity. And that you have to keep a team focused, right? Arizona. A lot of people I heard when they were going to play Oregon, Arizona, Khalil Tate's getting ready to run all over Arizona. And I'm like, well, really, is he? Because he's done it, weeks prior. That doesn't mean that that's going to happen that next week. So when you go into an off season, that was never my mindset. I'm never comfortable, right? I could be sitting here with one loss, and I still wouldn't be comfortable because I understand that anything can happen in war. Anything can happen in football. And, you see it. You saw it when USC came here back in 2000. What year was that? When Quez and they beat USC. USC was ranked. You see it all the time. So the job of any staff, right, any competent staff, is to keep everybody focused and keep everybody working hard, right? And it's not about what you did last season. You can't be about what you did last season. Yes, you finished on a high note, but you have to build on that. And that means for whatever the positive or whatever the amount of wins that you had, you have to work twice as hard to get to where you want to be. You can never take a day off. You can never take a step back. You can never relax. You can never think that you've arrived. And that's why I made the comment when they said, I think Cory asked, do you think the team just doesn't know how to win? And that's why I made the comment. Winning starts in January. You know what I mean? That starts in the body of work that you put in and how hard you work and how well, the team is prepared mentally as well as physically. So, yes, you want to build on it. And do I think, as a team, we thought because it happened at the tail end of last season, those things, and people would just start to get out of the way. Now, I'll tell you this, you also would hear opponents say, man, we really didn't really look forward to playing you guys because we watched how you guys finished. So it was in the mind of the opponent as well. But, even teaching the opponent a lesson, you still have to play the game. The game is not played on a stat sheet. The game is not played in 2016. The game is, for a new team. Because when you look at it, because of attrition, right, we're not the same team that we were last season as far as, how many O-linemen are we missing from that team last year? 3? Look at the outside on the edges. We don't have Treston Decool. Who was his replacement? So, and that's every team across the country, right? It's the nature of the sport, but that's why the degrees have to turn up. Right? You got to turn up degree, and you have to get better in that regard every single year. But that starts in January. And it doesn't matter who it is, because you guys can take a 5-win team, a 2-win team, and depending on who comes in and who kind of interjects and implements their system, it changes. Right? It changes. It could be the weight system. It could be the depth chart, and it could be a new player. Things change, and so you have to change with those things, with those different factors. So to your point, was that on the mind of the players? Probably so, because we beat the Ducks. So that means we can beat the world. That means we can come out in 2017 and everybody knows we beat the Ducks. Everybody knows we beat Arizona. We were rolling. But then that's not where football is played. Football is played in the work and the things that you do in January to lead up to it, to where you're bigger, stronger, faster, smarter. You're a year seasoned, at your position. And you're because it's a different schedule also, right? So that's something that, again, that has to be led in the right direction, and it starts soon as this game's over. That's when it starts, right? So.
Coach, having said all of that, what place is there in a week like this for motivation, for trying to play out of your minds, play the best game of your life, even if things haven't gone as well as you would have hoped? Are you planning on talking to the team about that kind of thing all week? Can emotion help you win a game like that?
Absolutely. And not just that, I'm looking for Steven Jackson. Where are you at, Steven? I'm going to need you to come talk to the team. That would be perfect. All right? You have my number, area code 541 452 bleep, 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 bleep. But absolutely, I mean, you have someone and come in and, again, I do it, but I do it all the time. That's just my personality. So I'm going to have them charged. It can't just come from me. It's got to come from the team. It has to come from the assistant coaches. And I think you do, I think you do pull in one of the Beeve alum and make a special appearance, because this is the Civil War, and there's nothing civil about it, right? It shouldn't be. So that point needs to be drove home constantly, repeatedly. Everything that you do, you're doing it in an effort to beat your crosstown rival. And, this is going to affect a lot, right? There are some recruits that we have committed that also have Oregon offers. So you gotta realize that it's bigger than you. It's always bigger than what you as an individual think it is. There are a lot of things that a game like this can affect. And so absolutely, my energy will be at 1,000, maybe even 5,000. And not just because it's a rivalry game, but because, again, it's 1 week in the last game. It's one game and no more. And so they'll feel my energy, absolutely, but I would love to pull in someone else to have them come and talk, their experience with the Civil War.
All right, Coach. Looks like you answered all the questions. Thank you very much. Good luck this weekend.